Modern Greek refers to the dialects and varieties of the Greek language spoken in the modern era. The end of the medieval Greek period and the beginning of modern Greek is often symbolically assigned to the fall of the Byzantine Empire in 1453, even though that date marks no clear linguistic boundary and many characteristic modern features of the language arose centuries earlier, between the 4th and the 15th centuries AD. During most of the period, the language existed in a situation of diglossia, with regional spoken dialects existing side by side with learned, more archaic written forms, as with the demotic and learned varieties that coexisted throughout much of the 19th and 20th centuries. Varieties of modern Greek include demotic. Strictly speaking, demotic refers to all popular varieties of modern Greek that followed a common evolutionary path from Con and have retained a high degree of mutual intelligibility to the present, as shown in tocoprodromic and acritic poems. Demotic Greek was the vernacular already before the 11th century and called the Roman language of the Byzantine Greeks, notably in Peninsular Greece, the Greek islands, coastal Asia Minor, Constantinople, and Cyprus. Today, a standardized variety of Demotic Greek is the official language of the Hellenic Republic and Cyprus, and is referred to as Standard Modern Greek, or less strictly simply as Modern Greek or Demotic. Demotic Greek comprises various regional varieties with minor linguistic differences, mainly in phonology and vocabulary. Due to the high degree of mutual intelligibility of these varieties, Greek linguists refer to them as idioms of a wider Demotic dialect, known as Con-Modern Greek. Most English-speaking linguists, however, refer to them as dialects, emphasizing degrees of variation only when necessary. Demotic Greek varieties are divided into two main groups, Northern and Southern. The main distinguishing feature common to Northern variants is a set of standard phonological shifts in unaccented vowel phonemes, becomes, and a dropped. The dropped vowel's existence is implicit, and may affect surrounding phonemes. For example, a dropped palatalizes preceding consonants, just like and that is pronounced. Southern variants do not exhibit these phonological shifts. Examples of Northern dialects are Rumelian, Epirot, Thessalian, Macedonian, Thracian. The Southern category is divided into groups that include variety groups from Megara, Aegina, Athens, Cyme and Mani Peninsula, Peloponnese, Cyclades and Crete, Ionian Islands, Northern Epirus, Smyrna and Constantinople, Dodecanese and Cyprus. Demotic Greek has officially been taught in monotonic Greek script since 1982. Polytonic script remains popular in intellectual circles. Katharevousa is a semi-artificial sociolect promoted in the 19th century at the foundation of the modern Greek state, as a compromise between classical Greek and modern Demotic. It was the official language of modern Greece until 1976. Katharevousa is written in polytonic Greek script. Also, while Demotic Greek contains loanwords from Turkish, Italian, Latin, and other languages, these have for the most part been purged from Katharevousa. See also Greek language question. Pontic was originally spoken along the mountainous Black Sea coast of Turkey, the so-called Pontus region, until most of its speakers were killed or displaced to modern Greece during the Pontic genocide, followed later by the population exchange between Greece and Turkey in 1923. It hails from Hellenistic and medieval Con and preserves characteristics of Ionic due to ancient colonizations of the region. Pontic evolved as a separate dialect from Demotic Greek as a result of the region's isolation from the Greek mainstream after the Fourth Crusade. fragmented the Byzantine Empire into separate kingdoms. Cappadocian is a Greek dialect of central Turkey of the same fate as Pontic. Its speakers settled in mainland Greece after the Greek genocide and the later population exchange between Greece and Turkey in 1923. Cappadocian Greek diverged from the other Byzantine Greek dialects earlier, beginning with the Turkish conquests of Central Asia Minor in the 11th and 12th centuries, and so developed several radical features, such as the loss of the gender for nouns. Having been isolated from the Crusader conquests and the later Venetian influence of the Greek coast, it retained the ancient Greek terms for many words that were replaced with Romance ones in Demotic Greek. The poet Rumi, whose name means Roman, referring to his residence amongst the Roman Greek speakers of Cappadocia, wrote a few poems in Cappadocian Greek, one of the earliest attestations of the dialect. Mariupolitan Rumica. A Mariupolitan Greek is a dialect spoken in about 17 villages around the northern coast of the Sea of Azov in southern Ukraine and Russia. Mariupolitan Greek is closely related to Pontic Greek and evolved from the dialect of Greek spoken in Crimea, which was a part of the Byzantine Empire and then the Pontic Empire of Trebizond, until the latter state fell to the Ottomans in 1461. Thereafter, the Crimean Greek state continued to exist as the independent Greek Principality of Theodoro. The Greek-speaking inhabitants of Crimea were invited by Catherine the Great to resettle in the new city of Mariupol after the Russo-Turkish War to escape the then Muslim-dominated Crimea. Mariupolitan's main features have certain similarities with both Pontic and the northern varieties of the core dialects. Southern Italian or Italiot comprises both Calabrian and Greco varieties, spoken by around 15 villages in the regions of Calabria and Apulia. The Southern Italian dialect is the last living trace of Hellenic elements in southern Italy that once formed Magna Graecia. Its origins can be traced to the Dorian Greek settlers who colonized the area from Sparta and Corinth in 700 BC. It has received significant Con-Greek influence through Byzantine Greek colonizers who reintroduced Greek language to the region, starting with Justinian's conquest of Italy in late antiquity and continuing through the Middle Ages. Greco and Demotic are mutually intelligible to some extent, but the former shares some common characteristics with Zirconian. Yevanic is a recently extinct language of Romaniot Jews. The language was already in decline for centuries until most of its speakers were killed in the Holocaust. Afterward, the language was mostly kept by remaining Romaniot emigrants to Israel, where it was displaced by modern Hebrew. Zirconian is spoken in its full form today only in a small number of villages around the town of Leonidion in the region of Arcadia in the southern Peloponnese, and partially spoken further afield in the area. Zirconian evolved directly from Laconian and therefore descends from the Doric branch of the Greek language. It has limited input from Hellenistic Con and is significantly different from and not mutually intelligible with other Greek varieties. Some linguists consider it a separate language because of this. Phonology and orthography, a series of radical sound shifts, which the Greek language underwent mainly during the period of Con, has led to a phonological system in modern Greek that is significantly different from that of ancient Greek. Instead of the rich vowel system of ancient Greek, with its 4 vowel height levels, length distinction, and multiple diphthongs, modern Greek has a simple system of 5 vowels. This came about through a series of mergers, especially towards I. In the consonants, modern Greek has voiced and voiceless of fricatives in lieu of the ancient Greek voiced and aspirated voiceless plosives. Modern Greek has not preserved length distinction either in vowels or in consonants. Modern Greek is written in the Greek alphabet, which has 24 letters, each with a capital and lowercase form. The letter sigma additionally has a special final form. There are two diacritical symbols, the acute accent which indicates stress and the diaresis marking a vowel letter as not being part of a digraph. Greek has a mixed historical and phonemic orthography, where historical spellings are used if the pronunciation matches modern usage. The correspondence between consonant phonemes and graphemes is largely unique, but several of the vowels can be spelled in multiple ways. Thus reading is easy but spelling is difficult. A number of diacritical signs were used until 1982, when they were officially dropped from Greek spelling as no longer corresponding to the modern pronunciation of the language. Monotonic orthography is today used in official usage, in schools and for most purposes of everyday writing in Greece. Polytonic orthography, besides being used for older varieties of Greek, is still used in book printing, especially for academic and belletristic purposes, and in everyday use by some conservative writers and elderly people. The Greek Orthodox Church continues to use Polytonic, and the late Archbishop Christobulus of Athens and the Holy Synod of the Church of Greece have requested the reintroduction of Polytonic as the official script. The Greek vowel letters and digraphs with the pronunciations are alpha a epsilon, alpha iota e, eta iota upsilon, epsilon iota omicron iota, upsilon iota I, omicron, omega o, and omicron upsilon u. The digraphs alpha upsilon, epsilon upsilon, and eta upsilon are pronounced av, ev, and iv, respectively before vowels and voiced consonants, and af, f, and if, respectively before voiceless consonants. The Greek letters phi, beta, theta, and delta are pronounced f, v, theta, and th, respectively. The letters gamma and chi are pronounced and x, respectively. Before midiclose front vowels, they are fronted, becoming, and, respectively, which, in some dialects, notably those of Crete and the Mani, are further fronted to or and or, respectively. Mu or over before midiclose back vowels. Gamma tends to be pronounced further back than a prototypical velar, between a velar and an uvula. The letter Xi stands for the sequence Ks, and Psi for Ps. The digraphs gamma, gamma, and gamma kappa are generally pronounced, but are fronted to before front vowels and tend to be pronounced before the back vowels. When these digraphs are preceded by a vowel, they are pronounced and before front vowels and before the back. The digraph gamma gamma may be pronounced in some words. The pronunciation for the digraph gamma kappa is extremely rare, but could be heard in literary and scholarly words or when reading ancient texts. Normally it retains its original pronunciation only in the trigraph gamma kappa tau, where tau prevents the sonorization of kappa by gamma. Syntax and morphology. Modern Greek is largely a synthetic language. Modern Greek and Albanian are the only two modern Indo-European languages that retain a synthetic passive. Differences from Classical Greek. Modern Greek has changed from Classical Greek in morphology and syntax, losing some features and gaining others. Features lost: dative case, optative mood, infinitive, dual number, participles, third-person imperative. Features gained: gerund, modal particle theta alpha, which marks future and conditional tenses. auxiliary verb forms for certain verb forms, aspectual distinction in future tense between imperfective and perfective. Modern Greek has developed a simpler system of grammatical prefixes marking tense and aspect, such as augmentation and reduplication, and has lost some patterns of noun declension and some distinct forms in the declensions that were retained. Most of these features are shared with other languages spoken in the Balkan Peninsula, although Greek does not show all typical Balkan areal features, such as the postposed article, because of the influence of katharevusa. However, demotic is not commonly used in its purest form. Archaisms are still widely used, especially in writing and in more formal speech, as well as in some everyday expressions, such as the dative epsilon nu tau alpha she epsilon iota of the third-person imperative zeta eta tau omega. Sample text. The following is a sample text in modern Greek of the Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Alpha rho theta rho omicron 1, omicron lambda omicron iota omicron iota alpha nu theta rho omega pi omicron iota gamma epsilon nu iota omicron epsilon nu tau alpha iota epsilon lambda epsilon theta epsilon rho omicron iota kappa alpha iota of sigma omicron iota of sigma tau eta nu alpha she iota omicron pi rho epsilon iota alpha kappa alpha iota tau alpha delta iota kappa alpha iota omega mu alpha tau alpha epsilon iota nu alpha iota pi rho omicron iota kappa iota of sigma mu epsilon nu omicron iota mu epsilon lambda omicron gamma iota kappa alpha iota of sigma epsilon nu epsilon iota delta eta sigma eta kappa alpha iota omicron phi epsilon iota lambda omicron epsilon nu alpha sigma epsilon mu pi epsilon rho iota phi epsilon rho omicron nu tau alpha iota mu epsilon tau alpha she epsilon tau omicron epsilon sigma mu epsilon pi nu epsilon mu alpha delta epsilon lambda phi omicron sigma epsilon nu eta sigma. Arthro 1 olo ioi anthropogenio ntai eluthroi kai iso istinaxia prepea kai ta dikaiomata. Inai proikis memoir me logiki kai sinidc arphalen nas imperi ferente metaxitaus me numero delphosinis. Arthro 1 oli ianthropy and elevtheri kis istinaxa prepea kai ta dikiomata. Ein prikis meni me loiki kai sinidc kai ophalan nas imbroferon metaxitos me pne acute vma ad helphosinis. Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in the dignity and the rights, are endowed with reason and conscience, and have to behave between them with spirit of brotherhood. Article 1. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood.